The office building was almost deserted, bathed in the cold glow of fluorescent lights that flickered overhead. The city outside was quiet now, the kind of stillness that made every sound inside feel louder, more urgent. Down the endless corridors, the hum of air conditioning mingled with the faint tap of footsteps, mostly hers. Tasha Lee moved quietly, pushing her cleaning cart, a tired single mother working the night shift. She was invisible to most, just another face lost in the shadows of the towering glass walls. But tonight, something felt different. Far down the hall, behind thick glass doors, voices rose in frustration. Inside the boardroom, tension crackled like electricity. Executives in sharp suits paced anxiously, staring at digital screens displaying numbers that spelled disaster. A crucial $500 million project was on the brink of collapse, and the pressure was suffocating. Tasha slowed her pace, her heart beating faster. She could hear snippets of panic, the desperation in their voices unmistakable. She paused outside the conference room, clutching her mop handle a little tighter. She was no stranger to being overlooked, dismissed as just the janitor. Her presence barely registered to the powerful men inside. But tonight, she felt something shift in the air. A chance, maybe, to break free from the invisibility she had lived under for so long. The injustice was clear. They didn't see her. They never did. But what they didn't know was that this quiet woman, walking the halls with nothing but a mop and a fierce determination, was about to change everything. Tasha's days were a constant balancing act between exhaustion and hope. As a single mother, she carried the weight of the world on her shoulders, working long hours to provide for her 7-year-old daughter, Maya. Every night, after her shift ended, she called Maya to say goodnight, masking the fatigue in her voice. Maya's bright, trusting eyes were the only light in Tasha's life, a reminder that her sacrifices mattered. At work, Tasha navigated an invisible barrier. The polished floors and gleaming walls of Mercer Tech felt like a fortress designed to keep her out. Colleagues barely acknowledged her presence, and when they did, it was often with a cold indifference or thinly veiled disdain. She remembered the countless times she overheard whispered jokes and dismissive remarks about her role, as if her job was worth less because of the uniform she wore. Despite the disrespect, Tasha carried a secret within her, a sharp mind and a deep understanding of technology that few would expect from someone in her position. Years ago, she had pursued studies in artificial intelligence at a prestigious university, but life's harsh realities had forced her to put those dreams aside. Now, she used every spare moment to keep her knowledge alive, quietly reading manuals and practicing coding on her old laptop at home. Her world outside work was filled with love, but shadowed by uncertainty. Maya's future depended on Tasha's strength and resilience. Every smile from her daughter fueled her determination to rise above the obstacles stacked against her. The whispers of doubt and prejudice at the office only strengthened her resolve to prove that talent and worth were not defined by job titles or appearances. Tonight, though, the calm before the storm was about to break, and Tasha's life was on the brink of transformation. The tension inside Mercer Tech's conference room was palpable. Alan Shaw, the head of engineering, stood with a smug confidence that bordered on arrogance. His expensive suit and polished demeanor made it clear he believed himself untouchable. To him, Tasha was nothing more than a janitor, a ghost in the building, someone to ignore or mock without consequence. One evening, as Tasha passed by the engineers gathered near the vending machines, Alan sneered, loud enough for others to hear. "Watch out, or she'll hack your laptop when you're not looking." The room erupted in forced laughter. Tasha felt the sting of the words, but kept her head down, knowing any response would only feed the prejudice. Yet, beneath the surface, Tasha's mind was racing. She recognized the complex code displayed on the whiteboard in the conference room. Unlike the others, she saw a critical error hidden in the tangled algorithms, something simple, yet catastrophic if left unfixed. But speaking up meant crossing invisible lines, risking ridicule and backlash. The injustice of it all weighed heavily on her. Here she was, a woman who had mastered the very technology the company depended on, forced into the shadows by bias and disbelief. The whispers, the sneers, the dismissals, they all fueled a fire inside her. She knew the truth. Her intelligence was just as real, just as sharp, as anyone else's. But in this world, that truth was buried beneath assumptions and stereotypes, waiting for a moment to break free. The night air was thick with silence as Tasha found herself standing outside the conference room once more. The glow from the digital whiteboard spilled out through the glass, illuminating rows of complex equations and code that few could truly understand. Her eyes fixed on the screen, she saw the flaw that had eluded even the most seasoned engineers, a critical miscalculation that threatened to topple the entire project. For a moment, doubt gripped her. The weight of years spent invisible, dismissed, and underestimated, pressed down. Could she really step into a world that had never welcomed her? Could she risk everything, knowing the backlash that would surely follow? But beneath the hesitation, a fierce resolve burned bright. This wasn't just about a job, it was about reclaiming her dignity, proving her worth, and fighting for the future she dreamed of for herself and Maya. With steady hands, Tasha pushed open the door and stepped inside. The room fell silent, the heavy tension suddenly shifting as eyes turned toward her unexpected presence. She moved to the whiteboard, marker in hand, and without hesitation, erased the flawed line. Carefully, she rewrote the formula, correcting the nonlinear function that would restore balance to the algorithm. Outside, hidden in the shadows, CEO Richard Walden watched in stunned silence. This quiet janitor, this black single mother he'd never noticed before, had just done what his entire team could not. The seed of change had been planted, and no one in that room would ever see her the same way again. The morning light revealed a company buzzing with whispers and speculation. News had spread quickly. Someone had fixed the broken algorithm that threatened to cost Mercer Tech $500 million. But the identity of the person responsible was met with disbelief and disdain when it became clear it was Tasha, the janitor. Alan and his team refused to accept the credit she deserved. Behind closed doors, they hatched a plan to isolate her, to make her presence unwelcome, and erase any influence she might gain. Subtle actions followed. Her work badge malfunctioned. Meetings happened without her, and her suggestions were dismissed without consideration. Tasha felt the cold walls closing in. Friendly nods became cold stares. Conversations stopped when she approached. The very system she had saved was now turning its back on her. At home, Maya sensed the change too. She asked why her mother seemed tired and sad, but Tasha forced a smile and told her everything was fine. Yet the isolation was more than professional. It was a stark reminder of the barriers she faced, not just as a janitor, but as a black woman daring to rise in a world built to keep her down. Every cold shoulder, every whispered insult, was a test of her strength and resolve. Despite the growing pressure, Tasha held on tightly to the hope that her courage would one day break through the walls of prejudice surrounding her. The entire company gathered in the main hall, the air thick with anticipation and skepticism. CEO Richard Walden stepped onto the stage, his expression serious yet resolute. He began by acknowledging the crisis that had nearly brought Mercer Tech to its knees and praised the unexpected hero who had saved the project from disaster. Tasha was called forward, her heart pounding as dozens of eyes fixed on her. Some faces displayed surprise, others disbelief, and a few held grudging respect. Alan stood across the room, his jaw clenched tight, refusing to meet her gaze. With calm clarity, Tasha explained the flaw she had corrected, breaking down complex concepts into simple terms everyone could understand. Her words carried the weight of truth and the power of lived experience. The crowd's initial skepticism began to melt into admiration, and applause broke out across the room. Alan's attempts to undermine her were swiftly shut down by Walden, who made it clear that Tasha's contribution was invaluable. He announced her promotion and assured the company that talent and integrity would always be recognized, regardless of background or title. For the first time, Tasha felt the walls around her beginning to crumble. The fight against prejudice had won a crucial battle, but the war was far from over. Yet, in this moment of triumph, hope burned brighter than ever before. Tasha stepped out of the conference room, the weight of the moment settling over her like a quiet storm. The applause still echoed behind her, but her mind was on Maya, her daughter, her reason for fighting every day against a world that too often tried to keep her invisible. For the first time, Tasha felt seen, not just as a janitor, but as a woman with worth, intelligence, and the power to change her own destiny. The next morning, she walked into Mercer Tech with her head held high. Her nameplate now hung on a real office door, a symbol of her hard-earned place within the company. The whispers and cold stares had not disappeared completely, but their tone had shifted. Some colleagues who once avoided her now offered hesitant smiles, acknowledging her presence with newfound respect. Alan Shaw still lingered, nursing his bruised pride, but even he could not deny the change in the company's atmosphere. New policies began to take shape, policies that aimed to dismantle the very biases that had tried to hold Tasha back. It was a beginning, imperfect but promising. At home, Maya's eyes sparkled with pride every time she spoke of her mother's courage. Their small apartment was filled with laughter and hope, a sanctuary from the battles fought in cold boardrooms and silent hallways. Tasha knew the road ahead would not be easy. There would be new challenges, new fights against prejudice and doubt. But for the first time in years, she felt ready. Looking out over the city skyline from her modest balcony, Tasha whispered a promise to herself and to Maya. They had made it this far, and nothing would take that away. The dawn broke gently, casting a warm glow on a future built on resilience, love, and unyielding strength. Together, they would face whatever came next, because now, Tasha was no longer invisible.